The fluorescent lights of TechDynamic's open-plan office buzzed overhead as I cleaned out my desk. Around me, former colleagues stared at their screens, deliberately avoiding eye contact. Only my desktop succulent, a hardy little plant that had survived 3 years of corporate politics, was making the journey with me from the engineering department to the maintenance closet. My name is Alex Chen, and at 28, I'd just been demoted from senior software engineer to janitor, all because I refused to give CEO Marcus Sterling what he wanted, full credit for my work. Need help carrying your things to your new office, Alex? Derek Sterling, the CEO's nephew and my immediate supervisor, smirked as he passed by. Though I guess it's just a closet now. I carefully wrapped my succulent in paper. I've got it, thanks. The past 6 months at TechDynamic had been a masterclass in corporate toxicity. What started as subtle credit stealing had evolved into outright harassment after I'd refused to let Marcus Sterling put his name on my quantum encryption algorithm. Now, instead of firing me, which would have violated my contract and given me grounds for a lawsuit, they'd found a more creative way to push me out. All employees must be utilized according to their demonstrated capabilities. Marcus had announced at this morning's all-hands meeting, and Alex Chen has demonstrated that they're better suited to maintenance than engineering. The laughter still echoed in my ears. 3 years of innovative solutions, successful projects, and glowing client reviews, all erased because I wouldn't play by Sterling's rules. What no one at TechDynamic knew, what no one could know yet, was that I'd seen this coming months ago. More importantly, I prepared for it. In the maintenance office, Joe Martinez, the actual head of maintenance, helped me set up a small desk in the corner. This isn't right, Alex. You're the best engineer we've got. Thanks, Joe. I placed my succulent on the metal desk. But maybe they're right. Maybe I am better suited for maintenance. Joe's weathered face crinkled with concern. He'd been at TechDynamic for 20 years, keeping the building's systems running while executives like Sterling took credit for others' innovations. We'd become friends during my late-night coding sessions, when he'd bring me coffee and share stories about all the corporate drama he'd witnessed over the years. You're up to something, he said quietly. I know that look. I smiled, just focusing on my new responsibilities. Oh-ha, he didn't believe me, but he also didn't push. That's what I liked about Joe. He understood the value of keeping certain cards close to your chest. My phone buzzed. A message from Dr. Emily Wong at Quantum Dynamics, TechDynamic's biggest client and competitor. Patent office confirmed. Announcement on schedule for Monday. You ready? All set, I replied, thinking about the encrypted hard drive hidden in my apartment. 2 years of work, thousands of lines of code, and dozens of sleepless nights had led to this moment. The maintenance office had a small window overlooking the parking lot. I watched Marcus Sterling climb into his Tesla, probably heading to another business dinner where he'd take credit for his employees' innovations. He'd built his reputation and fortune on that practice, finding talented engineers, pressuring them to sign over their work, then discarding them when they resisted. I'd known about Sterling's methods before I took the job at TechDynamic. In fact, it was exactly why I'd chosen this company 3 years ago, fresh out of my PhD program at MIT. While my classmates had chased positions at Google and Apple, I deliberately picked a mid-sized firm with a CEO known for stealing innovations. Because sometimes to catch a thief, you have to let them think they're the smartest person in the room. That evening, as I cleaned the engineering department's floors, watching my former teammates pack up for the day, Derek stopped by for one final taunt. You know, he said, leaning against a desk, you could have had it all. Uncle Marcus would have made you rich if you just played along. Now look at you. I ran the mop under his expensive shoes, forcing him to step back. We all end up where we belong, Derek. He laughed. Keep telling yourself that while you're scrubbing toilets. After everyone left, I sat in my maintenance office, reviewing the email I'd received from my patent attorney earlier that day. Everything was in place. The application I'd filed 2 years ago, long before I'd ever shown my quantum encryption algorithm to anyone at TechDynamic, had been approved. The timing couldn't have been better. Joe came in with 2 cups of coffee. Want to talk about it? I took a cup, inhaling the familiar aroma. You ever play chess, Joe? Used to, not much time these days. My grandfather taught me, I said, thinking about the lessons that had brought me here. He always said the most important moves are the ones you make before your opponent knows the game has started. Joe's eyes sparkled with understanding. And when did this game start, Alex? 2 years, 4 months, and 16 days ago, when I first read about Marcus Sterling's pattern of stealing patents from his engineers. I pulled up an article on my phone, one of many about Sterling's business practices, most focused on his genius for spotting innovative technology. A few mentioned the string of engineers who'd left the company under mysterious circumstances. None had managed to prove anything. The thing about men like Sterling, I continued, is that they're so used to taking what they want, they never stop to ask why someone would make it so easy to take. Joe leaned back, realization dawning. The algorithm you've been working on, the one they've been pressuring you about, I nodded, is a trap. A very elaborate, very carefully designed trap. And they're about to spring it? No, I said, checking my watch. They already have. They just don't know it yet. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Dr. Wong. Board meeting concluded. Press release approved. Monday will be interesting. Joe studied my face. You know, in 20 years, I've seen a lot of people try to fight back against Sterling. None of them won. That's because they tried to fight him directly, I said, standing to begin my evening cleaning rounds. But the best way to beat someone like Sterling isn't to fight them. It's to let them believe they've already won. As I pushed my cleaning cart through TechDynamic's quiet halls, I thought about all the nights I'd spent here, allegedly working on the algorithms Sterling wanted so badly. In reality, I've been laying groundwork for something much bigger. Every line of code, every technical document, every presentation had been carefully crafted for this moment. Monday morning, when Quantum Dynamics made their announcement, Marcus Sterling would learn an expensive lesson about underestimating the people he thought he could use and discard. But for now, I had floors to mop and trash cans to empty. After all, a good chess player knows that sometimes the best position on the board looks like the worst. And I had 48 hours until checkmate. Monday morning arrived with the kind of perfect clarity that only comes before a storm. I was polishing the glass doors of TechDynamic's lobby when Marcus Sterling strode in, tablet in hand, radiating the smug confidence of a man who thought he owned not just the building, but everyone in it. Chen, he barked. There's a scuff mark by the elevator. Take care of it. I nodded, hiding my smile as I checked my watch. 8:47 a.m. Quantum Dynamics press conference would begin in exactly 13 minutes. The lobby began filling with employees heading to their morning meetings. Direk arrived, already looking at his phone as he walked toward the executive elevator. He stopped suddenly, frowning at his screen. Uncle Marcus, he called out, you need to see this. I kept polishing the glass, watching their reflections as they huddled over Derek's phone. Their expressions shifted from confusion to concern to something approaching panic. Get legal on the phone, Marcus snapped. Now, 8:55 a.m., right on schedule. By 9 o'clock a.m., TechDynamic's lobby had transformed into chaos. Executives rushed between offices, phones rang incessantly, and a crowd had gathered around the wall-mounted TV displaying CNBC's tech news coverage. Breaking news from the quantum computing sector, the anchor announced. Quantum Dynamics has announced a revolutionary breakthrough in encryption technology. CEO Dr. Emily Wong is live at their headquarters to demonstrate what they're calling the future of data security. The camera cut to Dr. Wong, standing before a packed auditorium. What we're unveiling today isn't just an improvement in encryption. It's a fundamental paradigm shift in how we protect digital information. Marcus Sterling's face had turned an interesting shade of purple. The algorithm she was describing, the one being demonstrated on screens behind her, looked remarkably similar to the one I'd been developing at TechDynamic, the one Sterling had been pressuring me to sign over to him. But there were crucial differences. Differences that only someone with a PhD in quantum computing would notice. Differences that made this version significantly more advanced than what I'd shown TechDynamic. Most importantly, Dr. Wong continued, this technology is fully protected by patents filed over 2 years ago by its original inventor. The presentation screen changed to display a patent document. There was my name, clear as day, primary inventor, Alex Chen, Ph.D. The lobby fell silent. Every head turned toward where I stood with my cleaning supplies. You. Marcus Sterling's voice shook with rage. My office. Now. I carefully placed my cleaning supplies in their designated spot. Of course, stir. Though you might want to see the rest of Dr. Wong's presentation first. On screen, Dr. Wong was explaining the partnership aspects of the patent. This technology will be licensed exclusively through Quantum Dynamics, with strict ethical guidelines for its implementation. We're particularly excited about its applications in protecting personal privacy and preventing corporate espionage. Sterling's face went from purple to ash white as she continued. We've already identified several instances of attempted theft of this technology, including, she paused for effect, documented cases of corporate executives attempting to pressure the inventor into surrendering the rights. The display behind her showed emails, meeting recordings, and documentation. All the evidence I've been carefully collecting for 2 years. Every attempt by Sterling and his nephews to steal my work. Every threat. Every instance of harassment, all meticulously archived and timestamped. Security, Sterling barked. Escort Chen out of the building. Actually, I said, pulling out my phone, you might want to hold off on that. I showed him the email I just received from TechDynamic's board of directors, requesting my immediate presence at an emergency meeting. It seems we're both expected upstairs. The next few hours were a blur of revelations. In the boardroom, I explained how I developed 2 versions of the encryption algorithm. The first, the one I'd shown TechDynamic, was real but intentionally flawed. Any attempt to implement it would have exposed user data instead of protecting it. The actual working version had been developed in secret, patented early, and licensed to Quantum Dynamics. You deliberately deceived this company, Sterling accused. No, I corrected him. I deliberately created a honeypot to catch a corporate thief. Every attempt you made to steal my work was documented and will be included in the SEC investigation that begins. I checked my watch. Right about now. On cue, the boardroom door opened to admit 2 FBI agents and a representative from the Securities and Exchange Commission. Mr. Sterling, one agent began, we have some questions about a pattern of intellectual property theft at TechDynamic. What followed was the corporate equivalent of a controlled demolition. As federal agents combed through TechDynamic's records, more victims of Sterling's patent theft scheme came forward. Former employees revealed similar stories of stolen innovations and forced resignations. By evening, Marcus Sterling had been suspended pending investigation. Direk and several other executives were placed on administrative leave. The board appointed an interim CEO, Dr. Sarah Martinez, a respected engineer who left TechDynamic years ago after her own clash with Sterling. I have to ask, Dr. Martinez said when we met the next day. Why go through all this? Why not just take your algorithm straight to Quantum Dynamics? I thought about all the brilliant engineers whose innovations Sterling had stolen, whose careers he derailed. Because sometimes stopping a thief isn't enough. You have to change the system that enabled them. The changes came quickly after that. TechDynamic's board instituted new policies protecting engineers' intellectual property rights. The company established an ethics committee with real power to investigate complaints. And most importantly, they created a fund to compensate former employees whose innovations had been stolen. Joe found me in my maintenance office, packing up my few belongings. So what's next for the chess master? I smiled, picking up my succulent. Quantum Dynamics offered me a position heading their new security division, but I think I might stay here instead. Here, he looked surprised. After everything, Dr. Martinez offered me a role as Chief Innovation Officer, focusing on fostering ethical technology development. I showed him the offer letter. Plus, someone needs to help rebuild this company the right way. And the algorithm, the patent, will be licensed fairly with profits shared among all contributors. I thought about the trust fund I'd established with the licensing fees, dedicated to helping young engineers protect their innovations. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying something corrupt, it's about building something better in its place. 1 year later, I stood at a podium in TechDynamic's auditorium, addressing a new class of engineering interns. The company had transformed. Under Dr. Martinez's leadership, we become known for ethical innovation and engineer empowerment. Our stock price had actually increased once investors realized that sustainable success was more profitable than stolen shortcuts. The most valuable thing you have isn't your code or your patents, I told the interns. It's your integrity. Guard it as carefully as you guard your innovations. Marcus Sterling eventually pleaded guilty to multiple counts of intellectual property theft. Derek and several other executives faced civil penalties. But more importantly, their downfall sparked an industry-wide conversation about corporate ethics and inventor rights. These days, when I pass the maintenance office, I always stop to chat with Joe. He keeps a chessboard in there now, and sometimes we play a game after hours. He's gotten quite good, especially at the long strategic plays. "You know what I still don't understand?" he said during one of our games. "How did you know Sterling would take the bait? What if he actually respected your rights to the algorithm?" I moved my queen into position for checkmate. People like Sterling are predictable precisely because they think they're clever. They're so used to taking what they want, they never stop to question why something valuable is left unprotected. Like leaving your queen exposed. Exactly. I smiled as he saw the trap too late. Sometimes the best way to win isn't to guard your most valuable piece, it's to make it look vulnerable while you set up the real victory. My office now has a view of Lake Washington, but I kept the succulent from my maintenance desk. It sits next to my PhD diploma and the framed patent document, reminding me that sometimes you have to be willing to look powerless to achieve real power. Last week, a young engineer from another company reached out for advice about a supervisor trying to steal her innovation. I took her to coffee and shared my story. By the end of our conversation, she had a plan to protect her work and the confidence to stand her ground. Because that's the thing about corporate thieves. They only win when we believe their position makes them invincible. But true innovation, like true justice, doesn't come from power or position. It comes from the willingness to think differently, to play the long game, and sometimes to clean a few floors while waiting for checkmate. Marcus Sterling thought he was demoting an engineer to janitor. Instead, he promoted me to the one position I needed to expose decades of corruption. Now, every time I walk into TechDynamic's lobby, I look at the company's new mission statement etched in the glass: innovation with integrity. Below it in smaller letters is a quote I suggested: "The best innovations come from those who understand every level of a system." It makes me smile every time I read it. After all, some of the most important work I ever did here was with a mop in my hands. And some of the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about making sure no one else has to go through what you did.